I can do that again. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Today is December 10th. 10th? Did I get it right? 11th. Sorry. Today is December 11th. Yesterday was December 10th. And welcome to the Hastings-on-Hudson Board of Education meeting. We'll begin by turning it over to our superintendent for the announcements.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out tonight for our December 11th meeting. So just going to start by talking about some of the dates coming up that are important for us. And we're going to spotlight a few of the great things that have happened over the last couple of weeks. And then we're going to talk tenure. So it's a great way to start the meeting. So let's get right into it. So starting as soon as tomorrow, and you can see this on the agenda, there are certain meetings coming up. We have a health and safety meeting. We also have a Diesel/RISE meeting this week. We are doing a senior citizen concert and dinner this week as well on Wednesday, which is pretty exciting. We have our middle school PTSA liaison meeting later this week. That was rescheduled from November 27th to December 13th. We have a college financial aid night coming up this week. We have a lot going on this week. Winter concert as well for the high school. And then on Friday is a late start, so just be aware of that for our families. We have then next week facilities meeting, and we have a grade 7 and 8 winter concert next week as well. December 22nd, which is the day before the break, is a early release date. Our kids are getting out at 1:15 that day. That's Friday, not this Friday, but next Friday. Schools are closed till January 1st. We reopen again on January 2nd. So happy holidays. So this is our last meeting before the holidays. So happy holidays to everyone who is celebrating, whatever you're celebrating. If you're not celebrating anything, then enjoy the days off. And hopefully the weather will cooperate. And then when we get back right away, there's a SEPTA parent program, and we have a Hillside PTSA meeting right before our next Board of Ed meeting, which is January 8th. Yes?
It was just announced tonight that the grade 7-8 musical will be this
Oh, yes,
Friday.
December 15th, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to postpone Saturday night because of the weather, and we were able to reschedule for Friday night, December 15th, which I think impacted open mic night.
It does,
Okay.
yeah, we have to cancel.
But they have one in January, so they're just postponing it a couple of weeks, so not canceled, which is great. So if you did not get to see the 7th and 8th grade Sound of Music, Lisa and I happened to be there on opening night. I was singing "The Hills Are Alive" and my favorite things. My family wanted to throw me out of the house. It was great. But they did a really amazing production. Our kids were outstanding. So if you have a chance Friday night and you're free, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I really can't say enough. From everything from the tech crew to the sets were terrific, and it's a big play,
It is a big
and they pulled it off, and it was great, and their voices were wonderful, and there was just joy filling the auditorium.
And thank you to John. John Riss is our music teacher who directed it, if I understand correctly, and he did a really wonderful job. So definitely come out if you can on Friday. So we have a few things to highlight from the last couple of weeks from our last board meeting, so I'll just take you through some of the stuff there. We have students who were selected for all-county band and orchestra. We have Olivia for the viola, we have Leon for the cello, Keith for the violin, Christine for the violin, Beatrice for the violin, Jasper for the viola, Sarah for the violin, Sebastian for the alto sax, Dahlia for the trumpet, and Kaylee for the clarinet. And their performance is in March at SUNY Purchase. It's a big deal for kids to get selected for all county and all orchestra. So congratulations to our students who were selected recently for this honor. We also had a first place for our academic challenge. They're on a roll. Our academic. Right. I was going to say they're on a roll. Clearly, our kids are brilliant, which is pretty awesome. On Saturday, December 2nd, which was not this past Saturday, but the one before, our high school academic challenge team took first place in the A division at the MAC Quiz Bowl competition in Chappaqua. So seniors on the team are Jacob and Caitlin, Samuel and Nathaniel. They received a plaque and a $100 check for the academic challenge student activities account. So it's a pretty huge accomplishment. And like I said, they're on a roll. They've won quite a few things over the last 6 months or so. So congratulations to them and to their advisors, Nora, right? Bertacci, Mrs. Bertacci. So, and thank you to them for their work. You heard about the musical. We also had Hillside Elementary School's post office program that has started, so the kids get practice writing letters, and they then submit it to the post office. And then, as far as I understand it, letters get selected from the post office, and their prize is that I get to come and read a book to their class, which has been awesome. I don't know if it's a prize really for them, but it is certainly a prize for me. I had a chance to read to like a first grade class, a couple of third grade classes, the fourth grade class. It's been great. The kids have been so receptive and excited about it. Also, more importantly, also our Culture Shock Club students prepared over 1,000 bags of produce to be distributed to seniors in Westchester recently. And Culture Shock has an event, I don't remember when it is, in February, which really celebrates our diversity as far as I understand it as a student body. So really excited about that, but special thanks to them and congratulations for their work. This week is the Senior Citizen Holiday Concert, and we also have, and that was not mentioned earlier, but the court dedication to Coach Costello on December 28th as part of the Costello basketball tournament. And Coach Costello recently passed away, and so our condolences to his family, but we are going to be honoring him at the court and dedicating it officially on December 28th. So if anyone is around, please join us at 5:30 on that day. And our next Board of Ed meeting is January 8th. So that's after the new year. So we'll see you all in 2018. And I thank you again for coming out. Thank you to Janine for preparing our highlights as well. So we're going to take it out of order if it's okay with you.
Yes.
And do tenure. So if you want a motion, I don't know if you.
Okay, now before we do public comment, we have 2 tenure recognitions, and since we have family members here and incredibly well-behaved young children, we're going to move that ahead so that our incredibly well-behaved young children can go run and scream afterwards and do what they should naturally be doing. So Tony, do you want to do the presentation on that?
Yes, please. Thank you, Lisa. So we have 2 teachers who are here getting tenure tonight. Different than last month, this is not like a retroactive tenure. They officially are tenured at the end of this month on December 31st. So we have first and foremost, we have Sarah Schnall, who is one of our 5th grade teachers in the middle school. I've had an opportunity to spend time in Sarah's classroom, and Sarah's here, by the way, in the front of our audience with her beautiful kids. Sarah, as I mentioned, is one of our 5th grade teachers, and I had a chance to spend some time in her classroom on a day where they were working on a writer's workshop, and they were thinking about sensory details, and the kids were immersed in this really deep conversation about what they were getting from these sensory details, and they were annotating their text, and just the level of discussion was so profound and so positive, and they had all established these roles that they had done from the beginning of the year. So the kids had taken so much ownership over the learning in that class. It was great. So Sarah assumed a leave replacement in January of 2011. That's how she came to Hastings, and she stepped in the middle of the year, but she stepped in seamlessly, which is a great sign, and she was able to really pick up where Ms. Cavanaugh, left off. Sarah then came back. She's done a bunch of different things, but she is highly regarded by her colleagues and her administrators. They cannot say enough positive things about you. She's well respected by students and parents as well, and I can tell you that the smile that I can see on Sarah's face is literally the smile I saw the entire time I was watching her teach, and it was so comfortable, so wonderful. Congratulations to Sarah on your tenure tonight. So can you give her a round of applause? It's not official till we vote, so just letting you know. You'll be here a little bit longer, but we also have Mr. Corey Merchant, who is with us tonight. He is also receiving tenure, and Corey's I've been in the art rooms as well with Corey. So Corey's related to some other people that have an association with the district. We won't mention. We got the good merchant in this one, then we have the other one. But yeah, Corey is one of our art teachers here in the district, and he's taught photo and digital photo and animation and sculpture and ceramics and media arts, just a whole bevy of classes. And I had a chance to spend time in Corey's class more than once, but recently with a photography class, and he was working with a group of kids on how to develop their pictures and talking about the chemicals in the back room, and the kids' engagement was so impressive. But what was even more impressive was that there was a whole other group that was working independently. They were going through their negatives and determining which pictures they were going to, develop. There were kids who took cameras and were walking around the building to get pictures. And so what impressed me the most was Corey's ability to not only instruct, but to empower kids to really take ownership of their learning. And it was a really wonderful thing to watch. So he's done a bunch of things for us as well. He's a Google certified educator. He's been the photo club advisor, the yearbook advisor, and I thank him because he let me off the hook. I didn't have to take a photo situation. He also has written HEF grants. He has put the high school photo website together as well, and he's coordinated student photography submissions for scholastic art and writing competitions. And he's just an all-around great guy with a super positive attitude, and kids love being in his class. So also congratulations to Corey Merchant, who is getting tenure as well tonight. So.
Before we actually vote, just on behalf of the board, I just want to thank you both, Corey and Sarah, for all you've brought to our district. Sarah, I know you helped us out when we needed a leave replacement, and then we didn't want to let you go. And that you've done amazing work with our mindfulness program. And you also have that really delicate role of taking our kids who just know Hillside and making them feel comfortable and safe and valued at Farragut, and you do that so beautifully. And as Tony said, your smile, if our kids walk in and see that smile, boy, they're starting off the day right. And I know that, as I say, you're with our kids more than most of us are, and that you keep them safe and happy and inquisitive is more than we can ever ask as board members and as parents. And Corey, I say the same to you. You've operated on a different level, but you've taken what you were given. And I know we have a dark room that does film, and I know that you've also then taken our digital work and made it outstanding. And from what I hear, kids talk about you with your work with Yearbook, and you've done so much and engaged so many kids. And now look, you come with a history. You are part of a dynasty in our school. but keep them coming, okay? we like your family very much, but you take our high school students and you give them something that they're not familiar with. When Tony's talking about developing film, I mean, you may as well be talking about dinosaurs, but to have them engaged and learning about something that they could mess up and all kinds of things could happen, but you have them feeling safe and inquisitive, again, is just more than we could ask. So just thank you both for everything that you give our children in our district. With that, may I have a motion to approve the tenure for Sarah and Corey?
So moved.
And a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Now it's
Now
You're
it's
in.
official. Congratulations. And because it's a weeknight and it's a Monday night and there's a whole other 4 days of work between now and Saturday, please feel free to head on home and have a restful night. But congratulations again.
So let's just take,
Thank you.
thank you guys. We'll take like a 1-minute break
Yeah,
while
sure.
Next on our agenda is public comment. So anybody wishing to make a comment, just come up to the podium. We ask that you give your name. You don't have to give your address, just state if you're a resident of Hastings.
Would it be okay if we close that door?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Hi. So I'm Sarah Rubin. I'm a parent in the district and a member of Hastings Rise. We're here tonight. We have a statement that we have really co-created and co-authored, a bunch of us from the organization, and we just wanted to read this to you all. So this is a statement from Hastings Rise in regards to recent issues of racial bias within the Hastings-on-Hudson School District. Given recent incidences of racial bias within the Hastings-on-Hudson School District, we at Hastings Rise come before the Board of Education in order to encourage the district to demonstrate and put into practice its stated values of modeling a safe, caring community. We understand that the district believes in and strives for racial equity and inclusion, and we acknowledge that there has been some recent progress in putting structures in place to address racial inequity. Yet to actually be successful in their efforts, the district leadership must be willing to unequivocally support and elevate the voices of those most marginalized in our majority white district. They must adopt a stance of non-defensive self-criticism in examining ways that implicit racial bias works within the institution. Most importantly, they must directly address concerns of racial bias in meaningful and effective ways. We need to trust that the faculty and administration can be a model for our children in facing challenges with humility and determination, outwardly taking responsibility for mistakes, and using them as opportunities for growth. To do any less would be failing our children and our entire community. As a community, we have recently experienced a wave of negative consequences resulting from what we see as a series of missteps and missed opportunities in response to a racially insensitive remark by an administrator to a teacher.
Sarah?
Yes.
I am just going to give one caution that as a board, we do, for public comment, we do try to keep it, if it's about a particular personnel, we ask that that be dealt with privately. So just to the extent your comments, use your judgment to the extent your comments tread on that ground.
Yeah, I think that we did a good job of making it not about that,
Right.
but in more general.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate that, though. We acknowledge that we do not have all the details in regard to the legal investigation that ensued. However, the appropriate response in this situation would require an immediate apology from administrator to person affected, owning and acknowledging the harmful impact of their comment. Further, a statement to the community that to that effect would give our students a clear model of how to take ownership and offer reconciliation and healing to a person who had been hurt and negatively impacted by insensitivity. We know that in engaging in the work of understanding racial inequity, mistakes will inevitably be made. It is in the response to those mistakes, in the opportunities for modeling and learning, that our district can grow into a community of true acceptance, equity, and transparency, rather than into a culture of secrecy where issues of racial bias are swept under the rug. Okay. So let me know again. Okay. We have also been made aware of another incident that occurred during the recent professional development training on bias and cultural competency. A participant made an anonymous comment on a faculty message board accusing a faculty member of playing the race card, and though it did not include names, was clearly targeted at a particular teacher. We are grateful to learn that Farragut Middle School Principal Gail Kipper held a meeting with middle school faculty to strongly denounce the statement and discuss its impact. At the same time, we deeply regret that this discussion did not occur during the district-wide meeting, or at the very least was not addressed in an email to the entire faculty. The implication of this comment is that concerns of racial discrimination are not to be taken seriously, and that those who speak out should be silenced. Leaving such a comment unaddressed is dangerous and unacceptable, in that it implies either the lack of an ability to respond or, worse, agreement. The current coverage of sexual harassment incidences in the news has highlighted the need for the safety of marginalized groups to be taken seriously, for those with privilege and power to educate themselves and to be held accountable, and for targets to be patently supported in voicing their concerns. It may be tempting to believe that an offhand comment should be brushed off as trivial and well-intentioned, but we cannot forget that the impact of such comments is the creation and maintenance of an unsafe and discriminatory environment. Further, it is naive to believe that such comments exist in a vacuum. For every one incident exposed, there are likely many more that go unreported. Further, we are doing a disservice to the whole community if we are asking our children to have necessary, courageous conversations about race, but not supporting our faculty and staff in developing that same kind of courage. Going forward, we call for the district to identify a transparent district-wide protocol for addressing incidents of racial bias and hate. We are grateful to hear from the superintendent's email that a faculty committee has recently been formed to do this work. We hope that any protocol developed by this committee will go beyond the initial response to such incidents and take into account the need for continued support and follow-up for those impacted, transparency with the community, and an agreed-upon sense of closure for those who were harmed. In addition, we ask for faculty members of color to be represented and on this committee and for their voices to be centered in its work. There's one thing I want to add from that we didn't get to put in here. Because such a protocol is not yet in place, a flood of rumors, misunderstandings, and false attributions are surfacing in the community, and we are concerned that these are increasing confusion, placing blame, at times falsely, and ultimately eroding trust. Overall, as we said at the outset, we urge district leadership to look critically at the ways in which racial bias can and does operate on personal and institutional levels without resorting to defensiveness, and to always be asking if this policy or that language or this curriculum reflects true racial equity. To that end, we strongly advocate for continued professional development that promotes self-reflection and education around implicit racial bias. We also recommend consultation for district leadership with an organization like Border Crossers, which exists specifically to train and empower educators to dismantle patterns of racism and injustice in their schools and communities. We have the opportunity in this current moment for us as a community to learn from our mistakes, to make amends, and to do better than we've done in the past. For the good of our children, we must. Thanks. Thanks for listening.
Sarah, thank you so much. I want to give a couple responses. First of all, again, thank you and thank Hastings Rise for all the work that you've done and for keeping this issue on the front burner where it belongs. You know, we've been struggling with this as a board and a district too, and, you know, the rumors come to us, and there's certain things we're allowed to talk about and certain things we're not. And we actually, today, we asked our superintendent to reach out to our attorneys and give us the parameters on what we can and can't say. So I'm just going to read the statement from our attorneys and then have a few more responses. So this is, the attorneys gave the following statement. The Board of Ed is aware that there have been questions regarding certain personnel matters that have arisen in the district. However, please be advised that the district cannot discuss personnel matters regarding its employees with the public. While the board will take public action to approve certain leaves of absence, such as under the Family and Medical Leave Act, as it does not disclose the nature or reason for an employee's absence to the public for confidentiality reasons. We hope that you understand, while they are public employees, the district's employees are still entitled to a certain level of privacy. That's not to end a conversation, but it's just to say there are certain, you know, when it gets to the nuts and bolts of who said what to whom or whatever, the board and the district are bound by that. That said, as to everything else you said about moving forward and protocols and all that, yes. Yes, 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 and our district is committed to that. I know we have our diesel meeting, joining with RISE, and we've already talked about the teaching tolerance program for responses to issues of bias, and we hope to keep fleshing it out in accordance with the presentation from the Race Matters Committee that was given last year. I also want to say the incident that you raised about an anonymous comment about somebody playing the race card, I just want to let you know that the board was not aware of that comment until late this afternoon when a community member reached out and told me. I then shared it with the board. So I'm so sorry to hear that, and know that we haven't really had a chance to discuss it because it just came to us late in the day today. And I think everything you say about transparency, to the extent to which we can be transparent, we should be transparent. And I also really appreciate what you say about mistakes, that we're all going to make mistakes, and we just have to keep going and say that, you know, we're going to try to learn from our mistakes, but keep doing the work. So thank you. And I don't know, does anybody else have any comments? If not, we can move on to the next.
I appreciate you speaking up.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening and you know, being here to receive our statement.
Oh, thank you.
Sarah.
Sorry. Yeah, please.
Hi, my name is Georgia Lopez. I'm also a parent of students in both Hillside and at Hastings High, which is crazy to me. And I just want to say that if a teacher goes on leave, is it not protocol, typically, regardless of what the incident is for, to inform parents of the students in that class that the teacher is on leave and when they will be returning?
Yes, communication did go out from the middle school leadership telling families whose kids were in certain classes that their teacher would be out as much as we know, to what length of time, yes.
So part of what sparked Rise's desire to write something and present to you today is that several children came home on Friday and said that their teacher had resigned. And there were many, many, many reasons that they said their teacher resigned for. And that was really disturbing. It was all over Facebook. It was pretty, and people were saying that they had heard things that they didn't even want to repeat. So I think the part of the reason why we did what we did was because it's really important for parents to be able to manage their children in their fear, in their misunderstanding, and in their concern, right? Because the kids are concerned as well. And part of that means that parents have to have a courageous conversation with their children, but they weren't given the tools to do that, and that is, it's unfair. I don't have a kid in the middle school anymore, so I'm just speaking as a parent overall. I think it's really necessary that we make sure that parents have the tools to help their children move through difficult times. And that means that there has to be communication between the school and the parents. And I realize late on a Friday after school, it's not easy. You sent your email on a Sunday morning. Clearly, you heard that something was going on. So, or maybe not, I don't know. I shouldn't assume, my bad. However, I just think I think the point here is we have to proactively move fast, right? We have to talk to each other. I am a parent who does not like to get involved in my kids every single day. I don't like to tell the teachers what to do. I generally am pretty far behind. But when they come home and express something of concern, of course I'm going to find out what's going on as fast as I can. I don't post on Facebook like that, but people do. And they go nuts. So we need to think about these things, right? Especially when it comes to a teacher of color or any faculty of color or children of color. I mean, my kids are not white. So I don't want them to think that they can, that there's something wrong with them. And I need to be given the opportunity to help them rise up. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Georgia, thank you. And I'll put this out there because like I said, we're struggling with it too. I know that when we received notice of what the latest leave would be, Mrs. Kipper did email the families, so that was done, in a timely way. The approval of the Family and Medical Leave Act, with the identification of the person, was in the minutes from the last meeting. And I know we'd love to be able to help more and help parents counsel their children, but we're not allowed to disclose the nitty-gritty. Pardon me?
Why is it such a struggle? I am baffled.
You need to be in my opinion.
Okay.
I've been in this district for 20 years, and there are some people who, Tracy will not, and there are some people who have been at this table that my kids went to school with. You are struggling with how to deal with a black issue. Why? It is not a struggle when it is a Jewish issue. It is not a struggle when it is a white issue. Why are you struggling? Why are you struggling? What is going on? My daughter went to school with your children. Why is it a struggle? It was a surprise that she was a success because she wasn't expected to do well. And there is a tone when it is someone of color that we are less than, that we don't have the work ethic, and that we are not expected to do well. It should not be a struggle for any of you, because if we're in this town, we deserve to be here, and we deserve the respect. So do not struggle. Figure it out. Figure it out.
Tracy, just to respond, and I so appreciate your comments, and we need your voice, and maybe I was unclear. The struggle piece is...
Also, let me just also say something else. I'm sorry to interrupt you. The word tolerance, get it out of the vernacular. I don't want to be tolerated. I am here. I do not want to be tolerated. I deserve to be here. So take that out of any of your language. We do not want to be tolerated. Much like any Jewish person didn't want to be tolerated years ago, Hispanics don't want to be tolerated, women don't want to be tolerated. I deserve to be where I am right now. Don't tolerate me.
Thank you for pointing that out. What I was trying to clarify is the struggle is not about supporting anyone of color. It's not that at all. The struggle that I was talking about was when it comes down to a personnel issue and who said what to whom. That's the struggle when there's information that can't be shared.
No, that's not it. I have been here for 20 years, and you have used the same language every time. It is
Okay.
not supposed to be a struggle. When there's something with anyone of color, you have a hard time dealing with it.
Okay.
And I'm suggesting you get help to do so, because 20 years I have
Yeah.
a child who went through the school district, and I have a 7-year-old. You need to change.
Okay.
You need to change.
Point taken. Thank you, Tracy. Does anybody else want to speak?
Hi, my name is Jennifer DePriest. I live in Hastings. I have children in the middle school. I can't speak about what I don't know, and there's a tremendous amount about this that I don't know. And I understand that there are confidentiality provisions. I'm a lawyer, I'm a journalist, we're all thinking people. We understand that confidentiality has a value, but I think that something that, if we didn't know already, that we've learned in the last few months is that confidentiality can be used to cover up some pretty egregious behavior and some pretty hideous practices. And I'm not saying there's a hideous practice here, I'm speaking about what we've just witnessed. And so, well, again, while I respect confidentiality, 99% of what I know about this I got from children. So you have, I'm not going to say anything about what happened because I have no idea. I don't know. What I do know is that you have a very significant perception problem or reality. My children believe that something awful happened and that nothing was done about it. I don't know if that's correct, but that's what they think. And they believe that while the district talks a game, a very good game, about tolerance and inclusion and the value of diversity and the importance of being an ally and treating each other with kindness and respect and generally not being an idiot, they believe, because of what they've heard, which may not be correct, but because of what they've heard, that when it comes time in the moment to walk that walk, this district will not. It will not support people of color. It will not respond appropriately to comments. That's all I'm going to say. I don't know what they were. I'm not going to say that I know. So whatever happened in your process, you have a very significant problem in that at least my children and perhaps other children of color and children who want to be allies believe there are two different things going on. You're telling kids to do one thing, and then people are behaving in a completely different manner. And that's not acceptable. I don't need my children to develop a deeply cynical attitude toward this district's commitment to people like them and to their teachers. So you need to fix that right away, because that's all, from my understanding, all over amongst how children in this school district are thinking about this incident. So I'm not going to speak now about the rest of it because it's confidential, but I suggest that maybe you think about, with your lawyers, those confidentiality provisions and whether those are being used to hide something that happened here.
Thank you, Jennifer. Are there any other comments? Okay. Wait.
I didn't have anything prepared, but my child did come home and tell me something outrageous.
Oh, sorry, Kat McGrath. And I have a child in 6th grade. And she came home and told me something, and I will not repeat, but it was something and that if it was spoken, it should have immediately led to dismissal. So I assumed that it couldn't be correct, that it was a rumor. And when we talk about what we know and what we don't know, and it's very upsetting to me. We've been here for 3 years. Before that, we were in Jersey City, a totally different place. And there are things we don't know and we do know, but what we do know is that there is a rumor, and the rumor is real,
and it's very distressing. And it's obviously very distressing to parents. And this is all new information for me, so I'm not quite sure how to process it all at this moment. But I'm curious, Councilor Superintendent, if there's been any discussions about, there's a lot of conversations that you can have, a lot of courageous conversations. I was so excited to hear about in the first PTA meeting. There's a lot of conversations that can be had with the children about what they're hearing, about what's going around. I'm wondering if there has been any discussion on how to manage this rumor, which is very real.
I can tell you that as it relates to in front of it, I haven't heard any children talking about rumors in front of me, so I can't speak to. Sorry?
You would not. As a manager, you probably wouldn't hear that.
Possibly.
Well, that's why I emailed everybody sitting at this table, and I told them what the rumor was, because I thought you might not know. So I emailed everybody at this table, and I told you what the rumor was, so now you would know.
Right, and so the rumor
Right.
that you brought in about, that you emailed us about someone resigning, we responded to, I tried to respond to quite quickly to just
Thank
clarify.
you, and you did. I appreciate that.
That
Yeah.
there's no validity to that rumor. And possibly there was an assumption made because the board did approve a leave of absence about 2 weeks ago for the person that you inquired about. And so maybe there was an assumption on my part that people knew that that was public information as it related to the inquiry. So I don't know where the resignation rumor, where that's rooted. But anytime people have approached me, I can honestly say I've offered information that I can without violating anyone's privacy that clarifies rumors that have come to me, whether it's from a staff member,
Right.
from
So
a parent.
there's a horrible blasting rumor that all the kids are passing around, and I'm wondering what the administration is going to do about it.
Yeah. That is a very good question. And
When is the meeting to talk about how you're going to? I don't think that we can just let this pass. I think there needs to be conversation. There needs to be communication with the parents. There needs to be, has that started yet? Has that happened yet? Is it going to? It's hard. I know. It's a huge, horrible can of worms, and it's complicated. It's on a number of different levels.
I mean, there are a number of issues related to what you're bringing up. And so are we addressing those issues as a leadership team? I can tell you we are.
Okay, so my one only issue is how to manage this rumor that all the kids are talking about.
Yeah. So the rumor is connected to other things. That's what I meant to say, that it
Yeah, but
wasn't.
the kids don't know that. The kids only know the rumor. The rumor is real.
Right.
So how do we address these words that the kids are sharing that are horrific?
I could tell you that I don't think that there is an answer that I can give you that would be, this is how we fix it, because I think it's more complicated than there's a rumor, because I think there have been many rumors around this particular incident. So you may have heard one. I could tell you that I've heard multiple ones. And so whenever they come to our attention, to my attention, to our building leaders' attention, we attempt to fill in the information that we can share that's factual, and then be responsive to it.
That is not a strategy. I'm sorry. I'm going to hold you to task. It's not a strategy. You are letting the lawyers lead you. And I understand why, right? You're afraid of a lawsuit. But at the same time, at the core of it all, we are a community. And there's a reputational risk to someone who has spent a long time in this district and earned some currency with you. And while you're not saying anything, you're actually implicitly agreeing with all the rumors that are going around. So you're saying nothing is not acceptable. And I think that's what we're saying, that we need pretty quick action, because someone who has given so much of their life to this district, and with good results, might I say, that does not deserve this. So you ought to do something about it. It's just a call to action that I have been here for 20 years, and we have endured a pretty good experience here. But again, we've had to hold our heads up high, despite some of the comments that we got. So the microaggression that happens, and it's pervasive, you should do something about it. I understand that you're a first-time superintendent, but whatever help you need to get this going, I encourage you to look into it.
Okay, thank you.
I might just,
I appreciate the feedback, and I can tell you that we are working on it as a district, and while there isn't a quick solution to it, because it is an ongoing process, I understand your concern as it relates to communication. It's definitely something that we'll consider.
I would just start doing the walk, the talk, the walk the talk, walk the talk, and let's start a serious, real, courageous conversation. And let's plan a night when that's going to happen. Or let's plan an email to parents on giving them information to manage the situation, because this situation is not going away.
Hi, Jonathan Kastner. I have a second grader and a fifth grader, and also a member of Hastings Rise. And there are likely thousands of rumors, but there is actually one truth. And we've witnessed over the last few months lots of good apologies and bad apologies in the country. And I think actually this is a moment where there is an opportunity for someone to step forward and be their best self and craft an apology. I'm not sure what that might do, but in fact, I think it's the one way forward to healing the community. I would advise everyone to do the best they can to encourage for a heartfelt and true apology. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Are there any more public comments? I want to thank everybody who spoke up. I know, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I just want to say kids don't understand confidentiality. They don't understand.
Could you
You
just
need to come up to the mic if you want to speak.
That's okay. It's really just we need a record of your name, that's all.
Got it.
Well, the public can't actually see you or hear you if you don't have a mic, that's all.
Hi, I'm Thea Vaughn. I'm a parent, part of RISE as well, and I want to just second everything that's very well articulated from the team here. Kids don't understand confidentiality. They don't understand that legal process. And as I've said before, silence is more damaging. And lack of communication is way more damaging. And it creates an acceptance to what the rumors are flying around. And just as everyone has said here, there are many, many things that may have happened behind closed doors. But what is going out is not okay. And so this is an opportunity for there to be very direct conversations purely about racism. Call it what it is, call the rumors what they are. You don't have to address specific people, but you do need to address this as a topic that is global and present in our community.
Yeah.
Because it is legitimizing all the rumors by saying nothing. And the lawyers are speaking, but you can choose to make a communication that is, you can choose to make a difference without having to get their approval. So the choice is yours. And we're asking that you communicate clearly to parents and students so that they understand. And it's going on globally. This sweeping under the rug, this not talking about it, not being specific and direct and focused about very topical issues. So that's all I want to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And what I was saying before is, that that you've given us a lot to think about. You've put what's happened, in a lens, and I would say that, know that we're committed to doing the best we can. And I'm not going to say more because we haven't had a chance to speak as a board, so I don't think that would be right, but I can tell you we're all very much taking in everything you're saying. So thank you. Okay, with that, we'll move on. We're going to move on to the business portion of the meeting. I would say if anybody feels like leaving, to feel free, and if you want to stay, we welcome you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGrath.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Georgia.
Thank you, Karen. I'll see you Wednesday.
Jesse, you going to hold down the fort? Is there something going on within the dynasty we need to know about? All right. Okay. Everybody ready to move on, or does anybody need to take a minute? Okay. I wish Gail were here to lead us through a mindful moment.
The only thing we didn't do, Lisa, I'm sorry, we didn't
could
actually
lead you
let
through
Parker
mindfulness.
give a student update if she wanted to. She doesn't have to because we did a lot of updating, but I don't know if there was anything, Parker, you wanted. You're good? Okay.
Okay.
Sorry. I just
Okay, so we're now moving on to the business section of our meeting. Sorry, let me just go back to the beginning. So we have business items under Section A, a lot of invoices relating to the play. I do want to point out that we have an invoice for musical instrument repairs, and I'm proud to say that the woman who did that is Justine Sedke, who is a graduate, class of 2014, and she's an awesome musician, and I think it's wonderful when we can hire our high school grads.
You should also probably point out this in because it's a donation.
Oh, thank you.
That was just added.
And also, as point 12, that Tony just pointed out, is a very, very generous donation from the Joel Dean Foundation in the amount of $5,500. So it's our job to accept that.
That's earmarked for something?
Yes, 4,500 for
Landscape,
Land-
4,500 for landscaping at the Burr.
and the rest of it for scholarship.
Right.
That's wonderful.
For the scholarship, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's wonderful. Then we have our CSE and CPSE placements. And that's it under business. So did anybody want to pull anything out, or is everybody okay proceeding as a consent agenda? Okay, so may I have a motion to approve the business items?
So moved.
And a second, please?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, moving on, to personnel. We already did the tenure recommendations, but we have a few appointments, I think 2 permanent substitutes, and
Schedule
Schedule B as well?
B. Yeah, it was a revision to the schedule.
Okay, revision to Schedule B, and also a point 2 for special ed. Is that right? Did I get everything right?
Yes, because someone's leave is going to go a week longer than we anticipated, so she left.
Special ed?
Okay. May I have a motion to, did I leave out anything? Oh, sorry, there's also leaves of absences. That's the special education
Yes.
teacher that we're, okay. And resignations. Salvatore Pulitti?
Oh, yes, our district, he's one of our maintenance workers. He's leaving for another position.
Okay. Did anybody want to pull anything out? Okay, so we'll proceed as a consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve all the personnel matters? Not including the tenure, because we already did that.
So moved.
And a second, please?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Next is minutes. Janine, I was just going to ask you, I looked at the minutes. What I didn't see in there yet was the statement that was read on behalf of Doug Rushkoff, that was supposed to be added. Have you received it yet?
I may not have received it.
I think you may not have received it. Because I think in the minutes, I know we said we'd include it, and then it said that it would be placed in the policy portion. So should we hold off then on approving these minutes?
I'm going to check, I can't see the attachments.
Okay.
Just ask a question.
Never mind.
So people that come here and actually speak at a meeting, we don't sort of verbatim put what they're saying into the minutes. So why do we put what someone writes into the minutes?
Because I think we said we were going to at the last one, right, Janine? That's what, I think it was offered at the last time. So no, I agree. It's not something we routinely do, but it was specifically said then, and it is in the minutes where it said that we were going to put a copy of Doug Rushkoff's notes. So that's why. Janine, why don't we come back to that at the end of the meeting? You can see if it's there, and if not, we can put that off till the next meeting. Committee reports. Finance. Who would like to report on finance?
I'm happy to.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was, quick rundown on, sorry, let me go to it. Key points from,
It is there.
Oh, it is there. Oh, terrific. Okay.
key points from this week's finance meeting. Initial look at, we have the potential of a sizable growth factor. So a growth factor that in initial estimates could be in excess of 3.5%. So that with the tax cap combined to a pretty material increase in revenue, it's a decision we'll need to make going forward as to what percentage of that we feel is appropriate to raise the levy by. So that's one section of the discussion. Second section of the discussion, we're working around the concept of existing rollover budget, which is going to be just under $900,000 on a year-on-year increase. However, there are elements that we as a district anticipate being needed, necessary increases going forward. So increase in special education needs, an additional bus to facilitate musical instruments, getting to and from lessons, and building work, which has been removed from the budget to sort of generate the slimmest possible rollover budget to get an idea for forecasting. But if we add back in necessary building work that Maureen is proposed and understands as being needed from her colleagues throughout the building, you're really looking at the potential for a year-on-year increase of 1.3 to 1.4. So ultimately, from there, steps to do. Number one, determine the desired amount of levy within that range that includes both the growth factor and the tax cap. Put together an information packet, which we'll look to roll out to the community, where we need to determine if that's January rollout or early February rollout, what the best approach is for that. And then going hand in hand with the revenue and spending potential, continue our work from the previous Finance Committee meeting over selected cost savings targets. That's where we left it.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments or questions?
Well, did you mention the public meeting? Did you say that?
Yes, put together sort of our informational packet in either late January or early February to roll that out to the public. And you know, an email will be forthcoming when that's ready to go. You want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's good. I think we were just having a conversation how engaging the public is important, at least from an informative perspective, to get people understanding the budget a little bit more.
Yeah, and I guess what we talked about, and I do think it's important for it to be on the record and to strive towards this, is to inform and engage on more than a one-year horizon, but really begin to, for those that are interested, engage them on a 3 to 5 year horizon so that they can appreciate the puzzle pieces that we are together trying to work on for children as they go through the district over time, rather than just solving financially 1 year to the next. And I think it's a very, very important part of the work we do in the communication with the public on this topic.
Yeah, I think also because, especially in that 3-year outlook, there's the bond that we've talked about.
Yes.
That there's a very long lead time in terms of getting the work done versus when you have to start talking about it. And I think people may still be feeling like we just did a bond. So I think that conversation needs to start, and I think that would be a good part of the public engagement. The other thing about the public engagement is that we have to be a little bit careful about the calendar of engaging. And this one seemed, we talked a little bit about like the topic at the last meeting was to have engaged people about policy and the social media use of pictures in the district, but that one is a little less time sensitive. So I wanted to get this one in about the sort of broader issues in the budget before we get actually into the details of the budget. So that would probably come before doing the other. So that doesn't mean a survey can't go out, but it just means in terms of having another evening meeting that may be a little further out than we'd initially thought about. So.
Sorry, one quick question about the bond. Maureen, were we able to engage an architect to start the process?
Yes, so they should be coming to our next facilities meeting. They started to draft a potential timeline and are working on preparing what they believe would be the scope of work for the next, with the necessary items, and then there's always the things that the district, if we were interested in. So they'll look at like roofing and structural type items, and the auditorium, I don't want to say is wish list, but that's something that has to be addressed one way or another, but depending on what the idea of the use is, that would change
Sure.
the
That
may be a
price
issue.
tag on that, right?
And that actually just came up at the high school PTA meeting upstairs.
You know, it's a big, I would say that would be a substantial piece or a big chunk of the work for price tag wise. But unfortunately, because the approval at the state takes a considerable amount of time, and the process, even if we were to have, I was saying tonight, based upon the timeline, she had told me that even if we had a vote next October of 18, that there'd still be, we wouldn't be starting work till October, at least October, November of 20 at that point, or even further out.
Like 18 months from the state approval process, and then you have to go out for the bids.
Well, you have to go out, they won't design it until they get approval.
Right.
Full design. And then they
Is there
vote with
any
it.
way to vote May of 18?
Yeah. Yes, I mean.
Listen, I'm just throwing it out there. I see the eyeballs, the eyebrows going up.
I just think it
asking
would
the
allow for
question.
enough time for the community engagement.
I think that is. I think
Could
you
do
do.
it, I mean, legally, could you do it? Yes. Would I don't think that would be enough time to have the discussion that you
Yeah, all right.
want to
I
have.
think you just want to go through it once if you can.
Not even that, but I do.
But it would be a parting gift.
I think it takes more time to get people's attention and get them involved, and with the other things that are going on, I think.
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on, and
Yeah.
I don't see,
Right.
it just is going to take, that might speed it up 6 months, but that's probably
Yeah.
not worth it, so.
I will say, we have started the discussions, though. You know, I made a little spiel about the bond. I know we've been doing it at meetings, just so that people understand this is cheap money for us. It saves, it helps us as taxpayers, and it helps us as the district. So, you know, if we keep that messaging out, so I think that's really important. Anyway, thank you. Thank you for engaging the architects. Okay, so I don't think there are any other committee reports, right? Old business, we wanted to talk about the process for gathering community input on creating a new acceptable technology use policy. Doug, do you want to start that?
Well, I mean, to Eileen's point, I mean, I guess there is a broader conversation. So I think one of the first steps we took was redrafting an interim policy. And where does that stand now? That's been done, and is that?
That's done, yeah.
And is that what we have to read here tonight, or?
Actually, those are not on for first read. Christina, Eileen, and I had agreed on language, which I then sent out to the rest of you. I didn't really hear anything back from anybody, so I don't think. Maybe I did. But we can put it, I mean, if everyone is okay with that language, we can insert it into the policy and put it on for a first read at our next January.
So I guess the question is, if we do that in January, we do a first, second read, and it gets adopted in light of engaging the community on budget and finance and potentially other issues, do we want to maybe wait a little bit on that one? Or do we want to try to have a community engagement conversation? So I don't know, maybe it's just worth talking about right now as a board, like what's the process that we want to approach that on? I mean, there's a few different elements we talked about, right? One was surveying the community and collecting data that way, and then the other one was holding, so we've got the current interim policy. At some point, there's going to have to be some research done, another different policy that's a little bit more specific, potentially. Maybe it's the same exact policy, I don't know, that comes out, but there's probably some changes after we do research. So I guess the first question is, do we want to do the research? Do we feel like we have enough input? We do the research and we can redraft that without any further input, and then the survey becomes about checking in on the new draft? Or is the survey used to actually get data on the new draft? And I think that the specific issues that would be different between the interim and the new draft would be just a more specificity about how photos would be used. Right now, the current one essentially says none, right? Except for on the district website, right? But we haven't addressed how and where social media, does that stay as a no? Is there a password protected element of the website where the pictures live? So there's different, more specific questions. We may get to the end and decide we're not going to change any of them. The interim one's going to stick. But So there's, the elements is a new one, when do we get info, survey, and a hearing?
But could we also write a new one and then get feedback in some way other than a survey? I mean, just put it out there and let people give us feedback, or write in feedback, or speak up and give
Although
That's a form of
we
a
did
survey.
promise, us, at the last meeting, we did say survey and hearing.
That is a form of a survey, to do that. It's just an open text survey, but,
In terms of managing that's a good idea, but I'm thinking about in terms of managing the information that's coming in. I think it would be very hard to sort of then take that information and sort of put it into different categories and figure out what's what.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe with a more traditional survey, where you're checking off boxes in terms of importance or whatnot, at least you can like pie graph it and sort of figure out. And yeah, there could be maybe a section where there's a comment area, and those sort of get tagged onto the end or whatever. But I'm thinking that a survey, very specific survey, might be more beneficial.
The specificity may be if we do have a draft, do you agree with the password protection rate? Do you agree with opt-out versus
Right.
opt-in?
Opt-in, or opt-out,
whichever way.
opt-in
So
is
I
a
think,
very
you
key
could do it
one.
that way, it could be there, and then people have a chance to comment both on the language, but then specifically you ask them, if you're going to pick it apart, which pieces do you agree with and which pieces do you not agree with? And that might be a way to do it.
That would be, that's a good idea.
yeah, I mean, that's what I was thinking as far as being able to manage it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And we could still have a hearing at that point. My gut sense is by that point, there's not going to be a lot of people showing up to a hearing. And maybe we could just make it, the hearing as an item on a board agenda, and call it a hearing, and, see how many people actually show up, which
to talk about
I think by that point, interim done, new one done, survey gone out, I think a lot of the friction may be out of the issue, and it may
Well,
not.
also, maybe we'll have gotten enough, people will feel that we've gotten information from them and input, and
Exactly, that's what I mean,
yeah.
because it will be included.
Yeah.
Right.
So do we want to bring this back, so we did
Well,
the
I mean, if we're
draft.
going to do a draft, I think that has to go back to the policy committee. And then the other thing that I just, have the four of you that are not on the policy committee, are you okay with the language that I sent around?
Yeah, and that's our interim one.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that, and thank you guys for, I could tell a lot of work went into it. That was good. Thank you.
Okay, because, we have in the past, done a first read and gone on to adopting. So since this language has circulated among all of us, we can put it on the agenda in January for the first read. And if we want to get the interim policy in place, we can just at the same time say, we're bypassing a second read and going straight to adopting that as our interim language, because we've already talked about it so much. Because otherwise it'll take that much longer to even get the interim policy in place.
So wait, do first read on January 8th?
Yeah.
Or- Yeah.
First read and accept, basically.
Sorry, first read of the interim, or?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I guess-
Yeah, because we haven't, the first read we
Right.
had at the last meeting didn't have that language in
Yeah,
it.
so
So I
it's
wouldn't, I would sort of say that, we could call it, at a second read, and that we've changed the language between the first and the second read.
Too much of a change, I think.
But that's why I'm saying
Yeah, it's
I would
fairly
just kind of call what we do on January 8th.
Just do a first read January 8th and then second read the next one.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine. We just have to make sure that the public is very aware that this is not the new policy. This
Interim.
is the Band-Aid to get us through,
Yeah.
so they don't think that we've done something without following through. Okay.
I guess the only question left then is to get to the next version, because the policy committee is the ones that are writing it feel you can get that next version done, or do you need it?
Well, we can take a stab at it.
Yeah.
We can tell what's
Do you want a
good or
survey
bad.
in advance on that?
Right.
Do you want like the Christina type, easy to collate survey in advance
Or do
of
you
that?
think that after?
Well, when are we meeting next?
We're meeting in January.
January 8th, I think it is.
No, I think it was the 20.
So not the end of the month?
22nd. I think it was the 22nd, yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe we can just meet
Wait.
a little before then.
No, I have personal reasons. I just have to know, are we not meeting the 8th? I thought I saw it on the calendar. It would make my life much easier if we're not. You think we're not having a meeting till late?
I don't have it on, I don't have it on.
I have board meeting on the 8th.
There's a board meeting on the 8th, but I think
not
we
policy.
scheduled the policy.
Oh, policy, that's where I'm getting confused, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I thought you meant board meeting.
No. Well, our next policy committee meeting, I think, is before the meeting on the 22nd, because we said that day you
So
guys.
that's first read that comes out.
Okay. We're going to put the first read of the interim policy, we're going
Right.
to put on for the 8th.
Oh, fine, okay,
January.
great. All right, great.
On
Yep,
the
sorry.
22nd of January, prior to the board meeting, instead of having a finance committee meeting for the three of
Yep.
you, we're going to have a policy committee meeting for the three of us. At which point, we can start working with Tony to sort of come up with some language for more long-term policy. And the language may have some, this or this thing, like we may
Yeah, the
craft the
opt-in-
language
opt-in
for.
or
right,
opt-out, and then
Opt-in, opt-out, but I don't think the three of us are just going to.
It drives the questions for a survey.
Right.
Very good.
Exactly.
And
So that's sort of where we are. So Janine, I wrote that paragraph and sent it around, but I'll insert it into our current policy for you and send it to you for the first read for January 8th.
Okay, is there anything more to discuss under this? Okay, new business, discussion of possible district-wide cybersecurity audit. This is something that this is a pet issue of mine. I've been all about data security for a number of years. And I sent around some articles to you all about how the U.S. Department, basically, schools have been identified as really soft targets, and they are becoming a new favorite of hackers. And there's so many aspects to it. There's our own practices. Do we routinely do two-factor authentication? How often are we changing our passwords? And there's all kinds of technical stuff I wouldn't even pretend to understand. Then there's our outside vendors. How safe are they? There's so many issues. And then there's just a question of how large is our digital footprint and how large should it be? And then, as I said, the U.S. Department of Education issued an alert to schools to say, hey, hackers are targeting you, please start doing something. There was a long article, I believe, in the Wall Street Journal last week that I shared with you guys about 6 different districts. And it's everything from theft of children's data to theft of staff members' social security numbers. And I think there was one district where the staff members' refunds, tax refunds, were somehow gotten by hackers. And then there's ransomware. Ransomware is rampant. So it really, I just believe to my core that we are remiss if we don't start taking steps to make sure that we're secure. So where we left it was I reached out to a cybersecurity firm that was recommended to us by a high-profile corporation, and Maureen very nicely supplied the information that they needed so that they can then give us a quote. And then Maureen, I think you also reached out to our auditors.
Our auditors who have a division that does this type of work, they actually said that they could come at our next finance committee meeting or board meeting to give you a proposal and just to give you some idea of the work.
Yeah, I guess the one question I have with this, right, is how do we measure work quality? Right, like this, as relative to getting a landscaper in, I could just kind of look at people's houses and say, I like that guy over that guy. This is one of these things where I just don't know how you measure successfully what you're getting for what you pay.
I don't know either. Right now, we asked this one firm to give us a proposal, so I'm not even sure, literally what the work is. It may be going back to client references. I don't really know. I think we're at the beginning of this process. I think it's something we need to start looking at, but that's a great question.
I can tell you not that we paid for that, well, we did, with the internal auditors, when they do an audit, it's not obviously probably as extensive, but a lot of the things that come out of it did change our practice. I mean, for what that's worth, there are things that they do look at it and even, beyond just the password, just to see where they'll look at all your softwares and everything you're using. I mean, they give you, no one here is really doing to that, drill down, so depending on.
I guess I'm gonna piggyback that comment as well, which is, I wonder the degree to which many school districts of our size are the same, right? So as an initial first step with any of these people, practices that are being done in a school district of 1,600 kids in 3 buildings probably look very similar. And can we see some audit work? Because that immediately can help us to determine practices that we should be changing without, it may not be the final solution, but it's information that should be out there.
The other thing that, for us that was helpful at the time, because so much of the things we do are controlled by BOCES, because that's who we pay to
Yeah.
do our work. And I think, here we were assuming that they were doing everything correctly, or just making sure that they're protecting all of our information and having all the levels of security they need. But in the last time it was audited, we did find out that they were in fact not.
Yeah.
So, like they were sharing, so many more people. We had better internal controls than they had, and they had much more access to our data, because anything, all the software that's supported through them. So if we have an audit, they would not, the way it worked back then, they actually went to BOCES on our behalf, because they're the ones who oversee a lot of our servers and do all our backups. So, sometimes it's just a peace of mind thing for certain things. I knew they do penetration testing too, to see where you're vulnerable. Sometimes they'll send out things to see if people will open them, and, because we have had staff members open up phishing emails and things like that, and, they do that they do everything, so.
No, it's good. It's good to do that.
Again, but there's a cost to that, so I guess
Yeah,
depending
no, I think
on-
listen, I guess my feeling is it's a very valuable cost. Like, I actually think done right, it's an important, I think it's a very, very important topic. I think that
We have
a
to.
serious attack that would take down the school.
The ransomware really scares
could impact
me.
learning for a significant amount of time. I just want to be vigilant on the front end.
Oh, it's an excellent point. Actually, sorry, Maureen, not to put more work on it, would it be appropriate for you to reach out to the other Rivertown school and see if anybody's doing this yet, or
Sure,
has
that's
done?
fine,
Or maybe
yeah.
even some of the larger districts, maybe
Yes.
they can help get
Right.
us to, places.
I know that some people have engaged, at least our auditing firm who's done it, because they spoke about it. I can find out.
And I'm not looking to add to your
work,
work, but if there's information that can, say
Right.
that this was worth it, this didn't seem worth it,
But I will
would
tell
help
you, they
guide
did,
us.
the auditing firm we used did do a presentation to my group, and at one of our meetings, and then another firm did a presentation. So this is something that a lot of people are looking at, whether they have done it or will be doing it.
We all have to do it.
Yeah, I
That's
think there's a
where we're
lot
at.
of concern. I think there's a lot of concern, because a lot of people feel like that's out of their area of expertise, and we rely heavily on other people to protect our.
It's kind of got new tricks to it in the last couple of years.
Right.
So
Yeah, and
ransomware is new.
I think we've all learned that we will never be safe from hackers. So,
Then Uber just got hacked. Right?
I'm sorry, Jody, were you?
No, I was going to say, first, I think Tony can also check with other superintendents about other districts, but I think we have to do a little bit of our own homework and know what it is that we want, but I think you can then have a number of companies who can come in and do an audit, who can give you a proposal of what they're going to do, and I think the range is huge,
it's huge.
both in terms of cost and what they're going to do, and it just because you're paying more money doesn't necessarily mean you're getting the best, get what you need.
And there's two things to be mindful about with an audit. It uncovers things that you may need to correct, and that is that may incur other costs. And it's not to dissuade, but just to kind of point out the reality. And it doesn't protect you from a cyber attack, like in essence. And even the most secure organizations are vulnerable. So it's just something to be mindful of as we move forward. But I can certainly ask my colleagues and just shoot them like on an listserv email to say who's doing this and what are they doing.
It does.
Okay.
Yes.
No, it's
Wasn't there something with Google last week that they sent out as a
It's like
whole?
a regular.
Yeah.
We have like regular happenings.
That's what she said.
Okay, then policies first read.
So there were 5 policies that NISBA had on their first update of the year, and 3 of them involved Tony going back to different staff members for more information and opinions before we move forward. But 2 of them are on here for first read. The first one is 2160, which is about school district officers and employee code of ethics. And basically, there's just one sentence that was added based on a recent decision from the Commissioner of Education. NISBA suggested a minor clarification to this policy regarding the confidentiality of discussions held in executive session. So the additional sentence is in red in the and then I think there were a couple of additional references at the bottom, the legal references. And then The other one that's on there for the first read is 2330, the policy on executive session, and I think it's based on the same recent decision from the Commissioner of Education. NYSBA suggested pretty much the same minor clarification to this policy regarding confidentiality of discussions held in executive session, and they also provided clarification on the language of the motion to go into executive session. Whereas the first policy, the Code of Ethics one, we were using exactly the same language that NYSBA was, so I was able to just slot in the one sentence. With the executive session one, our policy sort of said the same thing. The list of the 9 reasons that you can go into executive session is word for word the same as theirs. The other parts, it was kind of like saying largely the same thing, but in different words, or the sentences in different order. And Christine and I, when we were looking at it, we just decided that partly for ease of use going forward in future updates from NYSBA, and also just because I happen to like the way they laid it out is a little more organized than the way ours was, we are recommending just adopting their language. So you'll see on that one, there's a red section at the beginning, then a section I crossed out, then the part that is identical that I didn't have to change, and then same thing at the end, there's a red section. So as I said, there's nothing really substantially different. And then again, there are additional law citations at the bottom, but there really isn't anything significantly different other than the additional language that they were recommending. And I'm just noticing, Janine, that when I was doing some cutting and pasting, I didn't keep to the same font size throughout. So when you get to the correct one, if you could fix that. And then the other 3 policies we'll be discussing at our next policy committee meeting, the end of January, so you won't see anything on those until subsequent to that policy committee meeting.
Okay. Thank you for that very thorough presentation. No, I mean that in the best way. Your notes are thorough, your presentations are thorough.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, so if you've read them already, or if you read them after this meeting, if you have any questions or any things you'd like us to clarify, we can do that. Otherwise, we'll put these 2 on for a second read at the January 8th meeting.
Okay. Anybody have questions or comments?
I do. I was thinking about the tenure vote tonight, and if my memory serves me correctly, there were a couple things that we used to do that I think we should think about. First of all, we always had the person who got tenure have a chance to get up and say something. And we used to have cake and have like a celebration when people got tenure, so that after we voted on tenured, we just take a break, and it just seemed like a really nice way to celebrate. I mean, it's a huge accomplishment.
I think that sounds great.
And I think in a way, maybe it's partly because we have other things happening, but I felt like we didn't quite give them their
Jody, did
their
that
moment.
happen? I know that May we have a big one, but if you had mid-year ones, is that what happened?
Whenever we had
okay.
tenure, I think we used to have a cake. And
I don't know if we've done the cake off cycle. I think we usually do that in May when we had a lot of people.
We could.
I'm not
we
sure.
could
I think we didn't
But
do
more
it the
cake
past
is
time or
always better
two.
than
Yeah, I was gonna
less
say.
cake.
What'd you say?
Not according to our health and wellness.
We used to get cakes from Riviera Bakery.
But giving them the opportunity to say something.
Yeah.
Sure. Terrific.
The other thing which I noticed both the last meeting and this meeting is that in the past, the principals have
Yeah,
gotten
we'd get up and present them.
and sort of present them to the board and to you, Tony, and sort of do a whole thing about their...
About who they are and their accomplishments. And do you remember that when Sarah got tenure?
Yeah, we had a conversation about these
No, she was
recent
part of
ones
May.
being anomalies, which is why they were not part of it. Like, last month they were already tenured. This month was a matter of days. So I think they're happy to be part of the conversation in May or what
It's just
have you.
a nice,
But
it's a big deal.
that's where it kind of came up. So the last month they didn't even know. So it was a little, yeah.
Jody, I love that idea. Going forward,
I just think
let's celebrate.
one of those things to celebrate.
Yes, it is absolutely one of
Sorry,
those
I
things to
didn't realize
celebrate.
that those things were in place. So
No, not a problem.
No,
That's
know,
why I just
didn't
wanted
realize
to.
either. No, thank you for pointing that out. I think we should absolutely do that. It's a huge
Had I been
accomplishment.
paying attention, I might have called
Thank
ahead
you.
and ordered a cake.
Second public comment, Jesse? Okay. Board comments, I actually just have a
That was
question.
my board comment,
Oh,
actually,
that's
sorry.
okay.
Yep.
I just have a question about attendance. We have on Wednesday morning, I think it is, we have a Diesel/Rise meeting, and I'm just trying to get a sense of how many board members are attending, because if it's 4, then we'll notice it as a public meeting. I know I was planning to attend.
I'm planning to attend.
Jody was planning. Okay, so, and then you were maybe.
I think what happened was we never got membership of Diesel because it was going to be rolled under curriculum originally, and so we never officially designated that.
Are you going to go, Eileen?
That's fine. No, that's good.
So are you not going to attend?
I won't attend.
Okay, then that's fine. Like I said, I just wanted to notice it if we needed to notice it, but we don't have to. Okay, finally, I actually have a little bit of a procedural question. So we're going to make a motion to go into executive session. And I was wondering if, in light of the comments we heard today, if we may want to have some follow-up discussion about another personnel matter, and if so, we would add that to our motion. So I just, because if
Could
we
just
don't,
make
then
a
we can't
motion
have that discussion.
To enter into executive session to discuss personnel matters?
So right now, we have a motion, I'm going to ask for a motion to enter into executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular former employee as it relates to benefits, as well as to discuss
Other
personnel
personnel
issue between staff.
Ongoing personnel.
Ongoing personnel
An ongoing
issue.
personnel issue.
Okay, so may I have a motion? And a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. So with that, we are adjourning the public session of the meeting.